Hillary Clinton secured a crucial victory in the New York State primary on Tuesday, April 19th, but the Sanders campaign has vowed to fight until the convention. On the Republican primary, Donald Trump easily secured a victory in his home state.
We're close to 70%, and we're going to end at a very high level and get a lot more delegates than anybody projected, even in their wildest imagination.
Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton handily defeated opponent Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders by double digits, picking up 129 delegates to Sanders' 98. The election was marred by voting irregularities, and news over 100,000 voters have been stricken from the voting rolls.
The race for the Democratic nomination is in the home stretch, and victory is in sight.
The Clinton campaign had the full weight of the state's Democratic Party leadership behind it, with Governor Andrew Cuomo and New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio stumping on her behalf. Clinton supporters have argued Sanders can't defeat a Republican opponent in a potential November matchup, despite polls showing otherwise.
Under the bright lights of New York, we have seen that it's not enough to diagnose problems. You have to explain how you'd actually solve the problems.
Exit poll data showed Clinton winning majorities of Latino and African American voters. The Sanders campaign had predicted a victory in New York, outspending Clinton and mobilizing the full weight of its extensive grassroots campaign. Sanders did not address supporters after results were announced, instead traveling to Vermont to, quote, get recharged and take a day off. The Sanders campaign faced renewed calls from pundits like Chuck Todd to step aside.
He's got an opportunity to essentially take over. He can lose the battle for the nomination, but win the long-term ideological war if he plays his cards right. How does he act as a candidate tomorrow morning? Is he, again, the head of a movement, or does he go and hard-nose after Hillary Clinton again the way he's been doing the last 5 days?
But in Vermont, Sanders told reporters he's going to fight on to the convention. This is Sanders' campaign manager, Jeff Weaver.
And then when we get to the convention, look, at the end of the day, the Democrats are going to have to decide who they want to elect in terms of who's going to be the best in November. And clearly the polls are almost unanimous now that Bernie Sanders is a much more electable candidate in November. We're going to go to the convention. It is extremely unlikely that either candidate will have the requisite number of pledged delegates to get to this number, right? So it is going to be an election determined by the superdelegates. And superdelegates are largely elected officials, party leaders.
They're overwhelmingly right now with Hillary Clinton. So the question is, if you guys can't come to them and say, we won the pledged delegate count, you have to honor the will of the people. If you can't come to them and say, we won the popular vote, you have to honor the will of the people. If these superdelegates already want to be with Hillary Clinton and they can say, hey, she won the popular vote, hey, she won the pledged delegate vote, how can you flip them after the primaries?
Well, because they're going to want to win in November. And if the polling continues to show that Bernie Sanders is a much stronger candidate in the general election, and that's for a few reasons, right? He brings a lot of young people into the process who might otherwise participate. He is extremely popular with independent voters. If you look at when you have open caucuses and open primaries, he wins independents 65-35, 70-30, and in November, only about a quarter of the population is Democrats. If you can't create a coalition with independent voters, you can't win the White House, you can't win the Senate, you can't bring in additional people into the House. So this is what has to be built in November. It has to be Democrats along with independents to defeat the Republicans.
From Baltimore, this is Jessel Noor.